Bovix's wisdom for admitting his disadvantage, and all kinds of other strange things, across the whole Colosseum. It made no sense. I really had no idea what was going on. It was so clearly a bluff, but the audience thought it was a genius stroke. I guess he just got some kind of weird charisma. Wait a second. If that's what I'm thinking, maybe I'm getting hoodwinked with everyone else. Was this all just an act? If he wanted to avoid combat with Bovix because he knew I'd be here and wanted to hide his abilities from me, I suppose that did make sense. I couldn't let my guard down yet. So Masayuki was still in the running, already qualified for the final. Gopta and Caroline, Lion Mask, were fighting in the second semifinal match, and I didn't need psychic powers to know how that would go. How well could a teenage hero manage against a former demon lord? Thinking about it that way, maybe this wasn't such a bad thing. It helped reassure me a little, at least, as I watched Masayuki leave the arena, blanketed with applause. Now for the final bout of the day, Gopta against Lion Mask. This one was pretty much over before it began, but I still wanted to cheer on Gopta as much as possible. I did promise that fishing pole if he won it all, and let me tell you, I was proud of that pole. It was a new model with a reinforced reel, designed by me so I could catch up with him in our informal fishing competition. I wasn't about to give it up that easily. I could make another pole with little trouble, yes, but it's about the competition. Gopta wanted it, and that gave him the motivation he needed, which was great for me, so I had to root for him. Lion Mask, Caroline, was so gonna win. He was probably gunning for the championship. If not, he would have bowed out after that intense fight with Geld. That'd sure help quash my anxiety about Masayuki. Caroline would be the perfect candidate to test him out with. I wasn't sure I could count on Milam's underling to pitch in for me, but right now, I felt there was nothing to worry about. He could get easily distracted, making me worry he might cut out of this tournament on a whim, but now it was clear I was too frazzled for my own good. Geld and Caroline didn't knock each other out, and now all my worries were in the past. The rest, I figured, I could leave up to him. But, as if reading my mind, Gopta was here and absolutely burning with passion. Why is he always running contrarian to my needs? He never puts in an effort when I expect him to. Whoa, wait, I was supposed to be cheering for him. Caroline was gonna win, but I couldn't laugh at Gopta's efforts, either. I turned my eyes to him. Gopta, who had summoned Ranga from the beginning this time, had his back turned to me. Oh man, he was just gonna rely on him again, wasn't he? That's why he acted so confident, he'd just have Ranga fight for him. Not only was it legal, if Gopta wanted any chance of victory, that was his only strategy. If I had to guess, Ranga was stronger than Geld. Caroline in no-holds-barred mode was one thing, but this stunted version of him? I thought Ranga had a decent shot. Hang on. If he did win, what then? If, on the tiny, I'm talking microbe size, chance Gopta won, then he could reveal Masayuki's powers for me, and my original plan would finally pay off. In other words, it didn't really matter who won here, as far as I was concerned. Leaving matters to Gopta concerned me a little, but hey, what happens, happens. So I started cheering my head off for Gopta. The match began.
I'm not the hobgoblin I usually am today.
Then why were you running from your last opponent?
Don't make me laugh, kid. Listen, before anyone gets hurt, why don't you just hurry up and forfeit at once?
Okay, Ranga, you're up.
Brushing aside Caroline's offer, Gopta made the first move. He and Ranga worked as a well-synchronized team. They must have strategized a bit over lunch. He was serious. He really wanted to win. He did, but...
Tiger Talon.
Sharp, blade-like claws grew out from Caroline's feet. He unleashed a tornado-like jumping roundhouse, aimed at both Gopta and Ranga. His long, sharpened claws offered no clue about their trajectory, and even if you dodged them, their tips emitted some kind of vorpal wave that cut through any target they faced. This skill was just something for Caroline to play with, but to Gopta, it'd probably make his life pass before his eyes. Gopta fell off Ranga. I knew it. This was just asking too much. He frantically clambered away, attempting to scamper out of Caroline's sight, but nobody had any right to laugh. Yeah, the crowd was all laughing, but they could do that because they didn't realize how fearsome Caroline was. Just facing him up and attempting a frontal attack deserved to be praised. But Caroline left him alone. Or really, he had to, because Ranga, freed from the weight of Gopta, was now snarling at him. He was currently the size of a large dog, but even so, his teeth and claws were sharp enough. Caroline stopped those fangs with his left arm, letting it be sacrificed to his bite. Then he brought the arm straight down, sending Ranga crashing toward the ground. But Ranga didn't relent. With a spin, he kicked against the stone floor and out of harm's way.
Whoa! That's some wolf there.
Yeah, but aren't dark dire wolves ranked C at best?
Oh, you mean the monster Sergei mentioned? But is that really a dire wolf?
The crowd was already stirring, astonished at Ranga's moves. Some of them were already conjecturing on what he could be. He's a Tempest Starwolf, guys. Special a grade and not the kind of thing you'll see raiding your garbage at night.
Elephant Stampede.
Caroline broke out another attack. The aura kneaded into it smashed into the ground from the skies above, like random lightning strikes. There might have been room to escape in an open environment, but not in this arena. If a ring out counted as a loss, your only choice was to take the blow. Or so I thought. But Ranga fled right away from it.
Huh?
Caroline was the most surprised of all. He probably didn't expect Ranga to just give up the match. It disappointed him a little, and for just a moment, that left him open.
Yeah, right there.
Was that Gupta talking? And that black shadow setting off on cue, it was Ranga. Just when I thought he'd fled outside the arena, he jumped right out of Gupta's shadow, like nothing was amiss.
Weren't you out of the ring?
Caroline shouted.
A resummon is not against the rules.
Diablo shot the ex-demon lord down. Caroline blew it. Yes, Ranga was much stronger than Gupta. In Caroline's eyes, Ranga needed far more attention paid to him. But his opponent was Gupta, and as long as he didn't step out of the arena, he hadn't lost. It was an underhanded move, but ever since this match began, he had been towing the boundary. This was what he'd aimed for the whole time. Playing the fool while hungrily striving for victory. This was how he'd do it, and the results changed the tide of the match. A fang brushed past Caroline's head. The attack caught him off guard, and he dodged it by a hairbreadth, or maybe not. I thought he'd fully avoided it, but then Caroline brought a frenzied hand to his face. Just as he intended to, Ranga had struck a successful blow. The attack took its toll, too. Caroline was on his guard, of course, but he must have been confident that he could weather any blow as long as it wasn't a direct hit. Instead of clumsily staggering back to dodge Ranga, he dodged just barely enough to segue to his next move, a simple choice for someone as dominant as Caroline. As a masterful lord of the battlefield, he had to make it look easy, that's how he thought, and his powers made that naturally possible. That's why he had the strength and agility to dodge the attack that came after Ranga's surprise reappearance. This time, however, Ranga wasn't aiming for Caroline at all but the mask he had on. With his honed instincts, Caroline decided to do the bare minimum necessary to avoid taking damage, and that let Ranga bite right through his mask. Now Gupta was all smiles.
Sweet, right on target.
He joyfully shouted. Then he whipped out his dagger and launched a shot of icicle lance.
Take this.
You little sneak.
The bolt wasn't meant to topple Caroline but to rip the mask off him. Likely realizing this, Caroline fought back with both hands over his face, and that gave Ranga free rein to attack. And with his hands essentially tied behind his back, fending off the Starwolf was a Herculean task.
So dirty.
What a cowardly way to fight.
Fight for real, you bastard.
The spectators weren't exactly satisfied with this. But Gupta didn't care.
Shut up. In this world, might makes right. Sir Rimuru said so himself.
He was playing to the audience now, shouting right at them. I really wished he wouldn't drag me into this.
I can see why he's aiming for a spot in the Demon Lord's Big Four. Fighting like that, and not being ashamed of it for a moment.
Yeah. In fact, he's acting like this is a completely normal tactic.
He looks kinda dopey, but he's sharp, you know. He was aiming for that from the get-go.
I bet the Demon Lord suggested it to him. I mean, check out that stupid-looking face of his. You think he could have come up with that?
Scary, isn't it? A Demon Lord capable of bossing around the Big Four.
Great. Now the crowd was making me out to be some transdimensional mastermind. It's all Gupta, okay? All his fault. And I really didn't need a Big Four who required my constant input in order to function, but the crowd would never get that. It was just sad. Now Gupta and Ranga had the initiative, and when Caroline finally took a step outside the ring, it was over.
Curse him. Alright, you've outwitted me this time.
I could tell he was furious, but he still had his reason with him. Better to bow out, he thought, than to continue this farce any longer. And he was probably right. If it became known that a former demon lord lost in a tournament like this, it'd spark an international furor. Of course, he did lose only thanks to a publicly announced message from a certain anonymous benefactor. Without that, I doubted this strategy ever would have occurred to Gupta.
Stunning, absolutely stunning.
Sokka's shouting revved up the crowd once more. I heard cheering, shouting, even laughter. Everyone had their own takes, but either way, they truly enjoyed this fight.
Did that man really need to conceal his face so badly? That seemed rather exaggerated to me.
Sounded like some of them were even advocating for Gupta. He was definitely the heel of the day, but between his lovable face, his nimble moves, and everything else, nobody could find it in their hearts to hate him too much. The crowd was happy, for sure. Geld and Carolan's battle was praised for the high quality of its combat. With this one, people would be talking about Gupta's antics for a while to come. This world starved for entertainment. Instead of the rule-bound tournament at Anglacia, the anything-goes atmosphere of this one seemed to grab people's hearts a lot more. It was objectively a terrible bout, but in the end, I guess it kinda worked. Later.
As punishment for joining a match without permission, I forbid you from lurking in my shadow until further notice.
Ranga, trotting up to me with his tail wagging, must have assumed I would praise him for a job well done. This was a shock to him, but I honestly wondered why he thought I'd